Breaking news coming in on December 31st, 2025. Footage revealed. Unmanned Systems Forces hit oil depot, radar, and troop bases in a massive multi-region operation. We're talking about Ukrainian drone units targeting fuel storage, critical radar systems, and Russian troop sites all across the temporarily occupied territories.
This is a huge story to close out the year.
A truly massive, coordinated hammer blow. And we have confirmation directly from the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Major Robert Medyar Bravdy. He's confirmed strikes across Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Crimea.
And what's so fascinating here, what really stands out, is that this isn't just a high-volume attack. It's deeply, deeply strategic.
So?
It really represents the maturation of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, the USF. They're now a system capable of achieving tactical goals that, directly influence the strategic balance of the entire war. We are looking at a definitive pivot point as we head into 2026.
Okay, we've gone through a stack of sources, combat reports, intelligence assessments, you name it, and we're going to dive deep into what this all means. Our mission today is to understand how this force, which, it barely existed a year ago, is fundamentally changing the rules of modern warfare. And before we unpack the targets and the sheer scale of this, a quick word. For everyone who supports Ukraine and wants to stay ahead of the curve, say Jor. Subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. Your support really helps us keep doing this.
And we have some astonishing details to analyze for you today. For instance, the casualty count among elite Russian GRU special forces, it could be the largest single loss for that specific brigade in its entire history.
Wow.
We'll also be breaking down the specific strategic concept guiding these deep strikes. It's so much more sophisticated than just, simple revenge attacks.
And we're going to show you exactly how Ukraine is blinding the Russian military. We've got confirmed kills on critical long-range radars like the NEO-BSV, and that immediately creates these huge air defense blind spots. It basically opens the door for longer-range missiles.
And finally, we'll connect the dots to the economic fallout. We are seeing clear, measurable signs of a petrol crisis deep inside Russia, and that is a direct kinetic consequence of this sustained, targeted campaign. So you'll want to stay with us.
This is where the war truly shifts.
All right, let's unpack this operation. When you look at the map, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Crimea all at once, it suggests a level of coordination that is just, it's extremely difficult to pull off.
It is.
It's not just one team operating here. This is a systems-level offensive.
Precisely. That tells us they weren't just looking for targets of opportunity. They were executing a synchronized playbook. The goal was to hit critical nodes all at the same time.
So it's like hitting the enemy's blood, eyes, and brain all at once. That's a great way to put it. The oil depot in Refinery, for example, that's essential fuel for the Southern Front. You take that out, you starve their local units of mobility, at least in the short term.
And there was one strike in Crimea that really demonstrates the technological leap we're talking about. Sources confirmed a precision hit on a sophisticated Valdai anti-drone radar.
Right, and that system is specifically designed to hunt and neutralize small UAVs.
The irony is incredible, isn't it?
It's the ultimate irony, defeating the anti-drone system with the very weapon it was designed to stop. The report suggests the drone hit the protective dome, essentially neutering this multi-million-dollar system with a very precise, very cost-effective attack.
Which immediately degrades the entire layered defense of a critical region like Crimea.
Instantly.
But the truly devastating blow, the one that, it must shake the very foundation of Russian readiness, was the strike on the 14th GRU Special Forces Brigade in Berdiansky.
Yeah.
The casualty count is just brutal. Over 120 elite personnel taken out in a single event.
And that number 120 plus, it's not just a figure on a report, It represents an irreversible loss of high-value human capital.
Right. These aren't conscripts.
Not even close. Special Forces operators are a totally different class of asset. Their training is measured in years, their experience is priceless, and their replacement cost is astronomical. You can build more tanks, but you cannot quickly replicate a GRU veteran with that kind of deep combat and intelligence experience.
I saw one analysis that put it in historical context. It suggested this single attack might represent nearly half the total combat losses that specific GRU brigade suffered across both Chechen wars. combined.
That is shocking, and it signals a critical vulnerability, a real soft spot deep behind their lines.
And it wasn't just the GRU, was it? They also hit the Rubicon D unit in Selidov.
Right, which is another specialized unit.
Yeah.
This one is tied to Russia's own unmanned and electronic warfare capabilities. So by neutralizing these operators and commanders, the USF is systematically degrading not just the equipment Russia has, but the brainpower needed to actually use it.
So this level of success, it can't be random. It has to be coming from the organization behind it all. The first separate Unmanned Systems Center. That was reorganized from the 14th Regiment, right?
That structure is absolutely vital. The commander, Bravdi, he reports that this one centralized center is responsible for, get this, 80 to 90% of all of Ukraine's deep strikes.
80 to 90%.
And the data from 2025 is just crystal clear. Operations expanded dozens of times over the year. This isn't just, linear growth. It's exponential.
So let's break down the strategic concept that guides them. The sources all emphasize it's not opportunistic. So what does systemic disruption mean in practice?
It means moving beyond seeking a single victory. Instead, you focus on destroying an entire enemy system.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Opportunistic targeting is seeing a high-value command vehicle and, hitting it once. Systemic disruption under this doctrine is hitting the oil refinery that produces the fuel for all command vehicles. And you hit it again and again until their whole supply chain breaks down.
Like the campaign against the Russian refineries.
Exactly. They hit them consistently. They target key distillation columns that take months to replace, rather than just moving on to a new shiny target every day. It's methodical.
I do wonder, though, how much of this is a philosophical choice versus just, operational necessity. The sources explicitly say this whole shift is driven by infantry shortages.
Oh, it's both.
The core decision being, drones, not people, should fight.
And that's the strategic calculus right there. I mean, if you're facing manpower constraints, you have to substitute human risk with technological risk. It's a humanitarian necessity and a military one. It means you pour resources into autonomous systems that can do the dangerous jobs, preserving the lives of your soldiers.
And that focus on preservation seems to be the driver behind this idea of the kill zone. What does that actually look like for our listeners?
The goal is to expand this zone to about 10 to 15 kilometers deep, right behind the front lines. Essentially, you're creating a safe, automated buffer. It's an area where autonomous systems drones systematically eliminate all enemy movement.
A robotic barrier.
A robotic barrier. It means fewer Ukrainian troops are needed to hold dangerous sectors, which frees up your infantry for critical missions elsewhere. It's force multiplication through silicon and sensors.
Now, let's get specific. How do these USF strikes actually open up the battlefield for Ukraine's other forces, say for cruise missiles or jets?
Well, it all starts with blinding the enemy's air defense. You have to take out their eyes first.
Right.
And this campaign specifically targets the detection and tracking assets that feed data to Russia's big surface-to-air missile systems. Take the destruction of the ST-68 radar. NATO calls it the tin shield.
It's an older system, but what makes hitting it so important?
The ST-68 is a low-altitude tracking radar. Its data is the lifeblood for systems like the S-300V and the Buck M3. When that radar goes dark, those big missile batteries, they lose their ability to track low-flying targets, and that instantly creates a radar blind spot.
So anything flying low through that zone, like a cruise missile or a drone,
suddenly has a much, much greater chance of getting through undetected.
Exactly. And they didn't just stop at the older systems. They also went after the 1L125 NEO-BSV radars.
And taking out the NEO-BSV is maybe even more strategic, because that radar is crucial for long-range early warning. It detects incoming aircraft and missiles from far away.
So you're shrinking their reaction time.
You're shrinking their whole detection bubble dramatically. We're hearing from Ukrainian commanders that this causes a cascade of tactical errors among Russian air defense crews. They suddenly lose their early warning and are forced to react to threats instead of, preempting them.
So the operational payoff is creating a much safer corridor for deep strike systems, many provided by Western partners.
Absolutely. When you degrade the Russian eyes, you create far better conditions for missiles like the Storm Shadow to penetrate. And this synergy is critical, especially since our sources indicate that restrictions on Ukraine's use of U.S. intelligence for deep targeting were recently lifted.
That's a game changer right there.
It is. Combining precise Western intel with the USF's ability to pre-clear the skies for those missiles is, it's a whole new level of capability.
And the USF is also proving it can hit targets before they even become a threat. The strike on the Shahid drone depot at Donetsk airport,
Yeah.
that showed they can destroy launch sites preemptively.
Right, which limits Russia's ability to conduct those massive combined missile and drone assaults we've seen. And that preemption is only possible because of their technological arsenal.
Let's talk about that. The workhorse is the An-196 Louisville, right?
It is. That's the core of the long-range oil war. It's efficient, has a 1,000-kilometer range, and carries a decent 75-kilogram payload. But what's really ingenious is what they're doing closer to the front. They're converting a long-range drone, the FP-1, into a mid-range one, the FP-2.
The FP2. That's the one designed to replace more expensive systems, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a platform with a 200-kilometer range and a 100-kilo warhead. So think of it as a highly cost-effective, homegrown replacement for something like HIMARS.
So instead of using an expensive precision rocket,
You use the FP2 to hit command posts, electronic warfare assets, E-line sites, just behind the front line. It's cheaper, it's scalable, and it uses local manufacturing. That dramatically reduces their reliance on foreign supply chains for that critical battlefield lethality.
okay, let's zoom out a bit to the strategic impact. The war of attrition isn't just on the front line. It's about attacking Russia's ability to even sustain its war machine. Are we seeing hard evidence that this campaign is causing real economic problems back home?
We absolutely are. The petrol crisis is no longer a theoretical thing. The sustained strikes against Russian refineries and fuel depots are showing very tangible results. Current estimates suggest a gasoline shortage of around 400,000 tons.
And what does that represent in terms of their total supply?
That's a critical 20% deficit in their domestic supply. And a shortage like that, it doesn't just affect civilian drivers.
Right, it has to complicate military logistics.
Immensely. And it drives up costs for farming, for industry, and most importantly, it hits the morale of the population deep inside Russia. I mean, when you force a major energy exporter like Russia to rely on emergency gasoline imports from Belarus, that's a very public admission of vulnerability.
And that compounds other issues, like the reports we saw in September that the Russian defense industrial base was already stagnating.
Exactly. It suggests that Western sanctions and this domestic disruption, they're finally creating a real chokehold, both kinetically and fiscally.
This kind of successful military pressure, it has to translate directly into leverage at the negotiating table. How do strikes on assets like the Tops refinery influence peace talks?
They shift the power dynamic completely. Ukraine is demonstrating a reliable, sustainable way of inflicting systemic pain on Russia, regardless of how the front lines are moving. That puts Kyiv in a crucial position of strength at any negotiating table.
It shows the cost of continued aggression is only going to get higher for Moscow.
And that it's non-linear. It could become existential for their economy. And this is in stark contrast to Russia's current approach, which, sources just describe as maximalist.
Demanding full capitulation, ceding territory they don't even occupy.
They're non-starters. The strikes provide the pressure needed to pull Russia back towards some form of realism. And they also expose Moscow's more cynical tactics, like using, transparently fabricated claims like that supposed drone strike on Putin's residence, just to stall talks when they're militarily vulnerable.
But Ukraine isn't just waiting around for those talks. The sources indicate there are significant plans to scale up this technological advantage into 2026.
Oh, that scale-up is happening now, and it's backed by serious international confidence. You've got the UAE conglomerate EDGE negotiating a 30% stake in a Ukrainian drone producer, Firepoint. That validates this technology on a global stage.
And there are administrative changes too, right?
Crucially, yes. Starting January 1st, 2026, the government is decentralizing funding. This allows individual USF units to buy components quickly and adapt on the fly, bypassing those slow, bureaucratic procurement processes.
And the future plans described are, they're genuinely next generation. We're talking about AI-driven swarming logic.
Swarming logic. That means instead of one drone attacking one target, you could have dozens, even hundreds, coordinating their attack autonomously to just overwhelm air defenses.
Wow.
Now combine that with plans for new multi-spectrum stealth materials for systems like the Luudi drone, you're talking about guaranteeing deeper penetration into the Russian heartland with weapons that are both cheaper and harder to detect than traditional cruise missiles.
So the December 31st operation was clearly far more than just another end-of-year strike.
Mm-hmm.
It was. It was the confirmation of a new strategic reality.
It was.
Cost-effective autonomous platforms are now delivering strategic kinetic results. They're degrading Russia's most elite forces, crippling their radar and eroding their economic power. This strategy is setting the conditions for Ukraine's success in the year to come.
And that brings us to the biggest question on the horizon, one for you to really think about. If Ukraine maintains this pace, if they accelerate it and achieve genuine military power status by expanding their long-range arsenal to, say, the 2,000 to 4,000 systems some experts suggest, would that level of proven deterrent force fundamentally alter Moscow's calculus for any renewed aggression in the long term, even after a hypothetical ceasefire?
Of technological deterrent.
That's the true definition of it.
You've been listening to Defense Report, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.